Okay. Hello. I've been trying to update my software so I can do this again. We'll see how it works. It keeps on failing on me. I really wasn't going to talk much more. Uh, Let me see if I can change screens here, because I think that's what threw it off last time. I was talking along, and then all of a sudden I looked, and there was this thing in the top of the screen that said preview. I was like, what? I see my screens have changed. Yeah, look at that. Change the resolution. That means I have to change all my screens. That's a bummer. No, it's still telling me that 1092 by 614 is not optimal. I don't know what is. Well, I guess if it's not crashing, I don't care that much. All right. Well, hi, Jeremiah. Okay, good. Screen is showing. Okay. Yeah, I was the last couple of I've tried now like 3 or 4 times here now, and keeps on crashing on me. And it says my video resolution isn't right, isn't optimal, but it doesn't tell me what the optimum is. But I guess I just listened to a tutorial, talked about it. I guess I got to do more of that research, see if I can still try to make it better. Because I'm using this new software interface, and it's clumsier than before, is my opinion. But anyway, so Revelation 9:1, the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star from heaven onto the earth, and him was given the key of the bottomless pit. Okay, in more of a next level way of expressing that now, not that that wasn't originally a next level way of expressing it, because those words were translations. It should have been like messenger, and the fifth messenger sent information, sent understanding, provided guidance, and all things that can be in frequencies, communications. Sounding is the communication delivery. And then it's the star fall from heaven, coming from heaven. It indicates that it's a star in heaven, therefore it's related to older members of the next level or younger members as well. can be younger members of the next level, because actually they refer to the throne otherwise, but the throne fell, I think, which would be T. Anyway, so in that star is the strewn across the heavens, and so that could be like also a comet, and so in a sense that I don't know what comet happened around the 5th, which would have been 1940s to 50s. From my estimation, no, in 1947 was when, and 48 were the Roswell and Aztec crashes. Roswell was in the Strait. No, the Roswell one was in the plains of San Augustine in New Mexico. That's where they put up the very large array. Anyway, so that's what this seems to be depicting. And it was given to him. Now, who is him in this? Him should really be, let's see here. Him is from Autos, I guess, Autos in the Greek. And it can mean themselves, yourselves, him, her, it. So then the key is with the individuals that are coming by crashing their flying saucers, so that their vehicles would be perished, and then they could, the souls would detach, and they would go find the vehicles that was prepared for them with the next level's help on all this. And the key to the bottomless pit is the opening, indicating the opening of it, opening of the prison where the space aliens that were no longer space aliens because they couldn't travel very far into space anymore, especially when they were locked underground, is what this looks like. The bottomless pit, the depths of the earth. So that might be under Antarctica or the North Pole, or maybe there's like an axis right down the middle that can be occupied by people in spacecrafts that are hiding down there. Well, also forced to be down there by the next level until the next level is ready for them to come again and influence people. So that was interesting. Huh. And then it says, then he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit as the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. I think smoke has to do with all the spirits, because in some contexts it's used as the prayers of the saints. So but it's also the residual from the smoke out of the pit is the smoke of a great furnace, kind of indicates that it's the Luciferians being let out. And the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And it might have been a volcanic explosions as well. Which I'm not sure where that could have been. I haven't tried to get the dates to line up on that score yet. The least important kind of things is to try to line them up with the events on Earth. To me, is first understand them. And the more we understand them and see that how these things were planned, the more we can identify the realistic mind of T and Do's organization. I see there's a chat room comment. All right.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you please repeat it?
Siri thought I was talking to Siri. I'm not talking to Siri. Okay, I'll go to the chat room. And is the star some kind of spacecraft? Yes, I believe the star is a crew of potential spacecrafts. A number of individuals that are coming on the task of, like Jesus said was going to happen, returning souls, the just and the unjust were coming back. And so they were choosing to deposit their, to lay down, that's where the fall comes from, also lay down, piptu, the word here, back up here, fall is piptu, goes to pedome, and has to do with to fly. So it's indicating that they're flying. Isn't that neat? And the word fall, flying down, because the other word of pedo, akin to pedome, is 4072 through the idea of a lightening. Now, I didn't know for a long time what that seemed to mean. And actually just today, when I read that, I thought, oh, that's what it means, because they're bringing the light down to the planet. They're shedding their light on. The light is their mind. Next level mind is compared to light. And when you're, like Jesus said, when your whole body is filled with light, then when your eye is single, then your whole body can be filled with light. So you had to have one single purpose, and that was, how can I serve the next level? How can I serve my older member? How can I be employed by my older member? How can I work for the next level in their organization? That's single mind. And that's what was taught by Moses and Jesus, is saying the greatest commandment was to give all your love, all your heart and soul and mind and strength to the kingdom of God. So who is opening the pit? Jeremiah is asking in the chat room. And that's the next level of students. Those are all the ones that graduated from the previous lesson period when Jesus was incarnate, who got their start on or before the time that Moses was the representative that was in the flesh. Incarnate and in the flesh is the same word, the same definition. And what T and Do called undercover. They were the ones that are undercover. Meaning that they can't be seen. We can't tell that, humans can't tell that there's a next level mind in the vehicle. of the older members. And they don't do anything to make it look like they're important. They don't wear robes that look religious. They don't wear the garb of the artists or the rich and famous, in the corporations, the suit and ties and the king's gear and the king's clothing. That's why I said the two witnesses were going to come dressed in sackcloth of ashes. And the sackcloth was, the ashes, it's among the dead. They're taking their vehicles from the dead. The dead are the whole human kingdom are dead because they don't only have life for the first time when they graduate into a stage of next level membership to where they're saved for future opportunities to graduate into adult membership in the next level. So, the ones that have the key, now this word out, him, is also them. So to them was given the key of the bottomless pit. Now, that could mean that it was one of the students, one of the elder students probably, maybe one of the four living being students who were given that key. Because the four living being students are like, it seems like apprentices to becoming archangels. In other words, captains of angels. Or, captains of angels. Now, Tiendo didn't say it a lot. Tiendo didn't go through all this with us. They didn't. They only went through Revelation 12:1 with us one time. Do did alone, and he said the woman in Revelation 12:1 was T. And T didn't come to that meeting. But that's the only time they opened the Bibles in the first 10 years, in a meeting, and Do talked about interpretation at that point. Then in the 90s, we got back into it again because, I referenced the Bible when I first joined for that first 9 months while we were traveling around. But then I wasn't even connected with T and Do necessarily. I didn't see them much. Nobody did because everybody was traveling. But that's when I would stop at libraries because part of that time I was living out of the car and also in tents or in sleeping bags under the bushes in different places, depending on the weather. But so I would stop at libraries and read up on things. I had a Bible, I think, because it wasn't hard to come upon Bibles. But I was interested. That was the first time I got into the Bible when I joined with T and Do. Before that, I had studied it a little bit. I was trying to study it, but I could never figure out what they were talking about. And it seemed like there was stuff that was inconsistent and hypocritical. And that was my mindset when I joined with T and Do, and then I went around the town and told people that I felt like I sat in front of the equivalent of Jesus. Well, T and Do didn't say they were Jesus. They said they were not Jesus. They said they were here to bear the same truth that Jesus bore and to bring updates to the Bible and to fulfill prophecy. And they said that Jesus isn't coming back with that vehicle for that stage at that time. Because they were going to take new vehicles. So they weren't going to take one named Jesus. And Jesus said that not to believe anybody that says that comes in my name, saying that they are a Christ. In other words, an anointed one has a job for the next level to separate the cream from the curds and whey of the milk, or to purify the gold. Which was T's examples of the process in those kind of symbolic ways of thinking, which they did very little of that. Symbolism was very little in the classroom. Most of the symbolism, you see in the book of Revelations, was for that purpose of keeping it somewhat disguised as a mystery, actually, and so that people couldn't figure it out, because they wanted to show them what it all means when they came back, and they spoke plainly about the kingdom, and they didn't speak anymore with parables, stories, like they did 2,000 years ago, because that's what people were ready for at that point. So the next level are opening the pit, and the wheat from the chaff, right? They're separating the wheat from the chaff. Exactly. And the chaff goes into the fire, which means the recycling by the lake of fire, and the wheat is saved onto the spacecraft that the next level has prepared to have the soul stored, and spirits even stored, and or where members of the next level are working, literally, physically, with physical bodies that were provided by the next level for those that did the best they could to give their lives to the next level, not necessarily physically, but physically as well is required. In other words, in service physically. And so in other words, you just serve the next level until you die. Doesn't matter how you die. Death isn't the objective. The objective is to do the task, to take on the task, to want to serve the next level with 100% of ourselves. And there's no limit on growth, and people can graduate still. Anyway, so the weed the weed aren't the graduates, but they can become the graduates. They're like the head. The head is that soul. It's the fruit from the vehicle. The soul is the fruit from the vehicle's mind. The vehicle's mind is also prepared in the spirit of the genetic code. Spirit and mind is a synonymous way of thinking about it. Mind meaning information, and spirit is also information. It's programming. It's programming that people accept and reject in their lives. So if they say apples taste good, that's the programming they have established in there. And it's not a bad programming, but it's a programming. If they say that they like to play the flute, and they play the flute, and so that's a program they're establishing. The program to play the instrument is the program. And then who are we? We're the individual that chooses to create that program and also chooses to run that program whenever we want to play the flute. Same thing. Go give a speech to somebody. Okay, we're drawing on the mind of the planet for all these things. We're not. It's next level mind, but it's not really next level mind. Actually, it's human mind. That's a mixture of what the next level has provided, like thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, those commandments, and the mind of the ones that fell, that are in this bottomless pit in prison, the space aliens, the fallen angels of Genesis, the sons of God that came to the children of daughters of men in Genesis chapter 6. That's what's set up to work against. In order for there to be a true astronaut training program, in order to grow a mind strong enough and dense enough and powerful enough and so filled with light that the mind of the next level older members, that they keep all those influences at bay and nothing changes them from staying on a straight and narrow course of staying with their older members program, which the 38 plus 4, well, the 38 did it the most because the other 4 didn't necessarily graduate to the same stage. I'm not saying they didn't, but I think they wouldn't have found themselves as dropouts at that time if they had accomplished enough to graduate to an adult membership of the next level and to receive a imperishable vehicle. So Jeremiah says in the chat room, what aspect of the individual moves to the higher level? The programs or software of the vehicle? No, the vehicle and its software, the programs, don't go to the next level. What happens is we fill ourselves with the programs, and that's why you can't have children in the classroom when it's graduation time. The children can be a part of the families of people that believe. There's nothing wrong with that. But if those individuals that are believers want to give their all, then they're not going to be able to give part of their service to children. And that's why Quinto didn't accept children into the group. But so what moves into the next level is, so the next level ends up putting a deposit of a container into the human vehicles that they have determined are capable of coming to recognize the older member's mind when the older members start to talk about what they're doing publicly. Because that's part of the program that's put in the soul container that comes from the next level programming. So that's the Holy Spirit, is the next level programming. In other words, so it's like a chip. Quinto compared it to a chip, like a chip in a computer system. So that comes with the soul container. But the containers are actually, the way that Doe described them was that if you could picture our human vehicles as being like a vase that's clear, just so that we can see through it. And not that it's really clear in reality. Well, it can be, I guess. Anyway, but a next level vehicle can be clear so you see through it. But anyway, so, and like there's 2 balloons inside this when there's a deposit put of a soul put in that container, in that vase. And so the object is that, and the human container is one balloon, and the next level's soul container is the other balloon. And so the human container gets filled up from birth, and it starts off with a big chunk from the genetic code that fills up the human container with the mind, information, programming, behaviors and ways, desires, heritage, memories, all the potential things that can be stored in that, digitally stored. So I don't know if it's not digital, I don't think in the way that we use digital, but I may be wrong, maybe it does, but it's encoded on the genes. But it's also part of the electromagnetic field of all the genes. So it offloads when the vehicle dies. It doesn't die. It becomes a spirit or a ghost or a anyway. So when you have these two balloons and one's got a soul deposit that's kind of empty except for certain programs, but there's two different kinds of souls that Quinto talked about. Well, Doe talked about as being in deposits. Like one, yes. Well, never mind. So one soul type is one that's going to be used where the human vehicle is going to be used for a returning soul that was planted to the first time previously. And then another type of soul is planted as a first-time soul. And maybe there's even another one that could be planted for a soul that hadn't graduated to the second kind of trimester lesson plan. Like Jesus was the second trimester lesson plan, and Moses was the first trimester lesson plan, and T and Doe were the completed lesson plan for that experiment. And that's still underway. It's finishing up now. And that's why it's in the public eye. Anyway, so still, because otherwise the Luciferians would have gotten rid of it by now. By not allowing people to talk about it, not giving me the time today to talk to it, not letting me use tools to send people the information and to go to the website that Carlin posted all the tapes to on 4share.com. Search on 4share for Heaven's Gate or Tiendo, and you'll come up with those tapes there. Anyway, but got off the track. But so the object is to fill up the container, the human container, with human mind. So in other words, have plenty of experiences. Everything you can do in the human kingdom is an experience. I mean, even harming somebody is an experience. The next level doesn't approve of that. But if somebody does find themselves in a situation to where they've harmed somebody else or killed somebody else, they can be forgiven of that. But they're going to have to go through a difficult lesson plan of having to deal with those thoughts of having done such a terrible thing. Terrible because it takes away that person's option of using that vehicle to become a potential member of the next level. And it was breaking the procedure that was given of the programming of saying that humans should not kill other humans. That's what that programming was in its most complete form. It didn't have to do with just premeditated killing. Like self-defense would be considered to be, by some, not premeditated killing because it was meditated or medicated, meditated, right, preconsidered. It wasn't preconsidered when they think that somebody caused harm to them, and but then they can just go by the premise of, he has weapons of mass destruction, so we've got to go take him out. That's, there's no evidence of, and then they manufacture the evidence. And then people believe anything they tell us, as if the administration changing it changes that really much. Anyway, getting off the track there, but so the object is to get into the human kingdom and then to get out of the human kingdom. And the older members help with that when they come around and they say, hello, we're here. We represent the evolutionary level above the human, the physical evolutionary level above human, not the etheric. There is no etheric evolutionary level above human. Not that they can't use the ethers or the spirit world and don't have this equivalent kinds of devices and structures and frequencies that we would call spirits or ghosts or dead humans or dead animals even potentially. Because Quinto talked about all those potentials for spirit to be existing within. And but we have to get rid of all those things. So in other words, let's say we get into the human kingdom and we get filthy rich, okay? Building a corporation. Well, a lot of times what happens then is we become dependent on our riches to solve our problems. So if we have a health problem, and instead of somebody who's poor thinking, oh, wow, do I have to go to the doctor? They charge so much money. And then they give you these remedies and you got to buy these prescriptions. I don't have any money. I don't have a health plan. What the heck am I going to do? And so that's, the next level helps people. But the rich don't think to ask for help because they're not saying, what am I going to do? See, the next level even takes that as asking for help from the humans and then tries to help them in some ways according to their thirst. If they're not really thirsty for that help, if it's just a casual thing of, going to church and saying, oh, God, please help me with my health situation. Well, I'm not saying the next level won't help them because they are asking. But it depends on what they ask for. And then whether they put things into motion determines what kind of help the next level is going to give. Because if they didn't put things into motion that the next level provided in ideas of go over to that health practitioner over there and see what they're teaching about holistic healing, or using herbs or using homeopathics or all things that Quinto used in the classroom. Or being on a cleansing diet so that you are getting rid of, you're flushing all the toxins out of your bloodstream and fat cells where a lot of them are stored. So you become a little bit leaner because of that. Anyway, that can get into a whole talk of the Transfiguration Diet book that Quinto provided, and people can send me an email if they want to hear more about any of these things in particular. Which is sawyerhg@yahoo.com. So let me see, back to the question. Before going to your next statement there about the computer analogy, because it's a really good one. And it's not accidental, I don't think that's a good one. Anyway, but what aspect of the individual moves to the higher level? Okay, well, actually, none of us are actually individuals yet. We only become individuals when we become members of the next level. And the reason for that is because what a human vehicle is a programmed computer system, biological computer system, that has inputs for information in it through our ears, through our eyes, through our hearing of words, reading, and other feelings, other ways of the sounds we make, and whether we're crying or sad or we're happy, and all those forms of communication. Is all part of our programming. And I got off what I was saying there. I'm sorry. I do that all the time, more frequently than I should. What was that point? Well, okay. So anyway, I'll get back to it eventually. But so the idea is to get out of those things that we get into in the human kingdom. And the second 6 grades in school, if you look at the human kingdom as the analogy of 12 grades in school, in the first 6, you got to the top of the mountain, so you were rich, your family was in good shape, you had basic health. You don't have to be rich, but you could, you're well-to-do with financially, you really didn't have a want or need for anything much. And you had, you gave it to the different charities, you participated in civic events, you were giving back to your community. You were basically being, family life. You're raising your kids, and you maybe even have college paid for, and maybe even have your burial plot paid for. It's use that example as well, and so everything's going for you, and the next level doesn't want you to stay in that condition, because you'll just become satisfied in that condition, and you won't ever become a potential crew member in the next level craft, where everything is about what you give of yourself instead of what you take for yourself. And not that those people can't be giving as well, but generally they're giving in an incomplete way. The next level wants you to be giving your all to them. They don't have room for just partial giving, because they don't need humans. They live forever, for all intents and purposes, and they can grow. They grow vehicles that they wear, and vehicles can be grown to even be spacecrafts. And you can grow so big of a mind that you can operate more than one spacecraft vehicles, and to where you're like the pilot in the spacecraft. And so that the individuals that are getting on that spacecraft to do a task somewhere, they don't have to do much in terms of the navigation and all that. They can focus on what the task is that they're going to do wherever they get to their place, like to bring water to another planet. And then they can observe what's happening on that planet where the life forms are growing and they needed water, so the next level gave them the task of bringing water there. And they can observe, and as they're observing, they might have been told to look out for certain things, and to see, how healthy the life forms were growing. And so then they would be observing that, and then they would be making reports back to the next level over the computer systems, or however they do that. They might be able to put it in the computer just by their thought, because their thoughts have been made very, very succinct, very specific, very very descriptive of a lot of details in one idea. They're an idea of shape, actually, not just one thought of an idea. And that comes by learning to train the vehicle to not give in to its human characteristics. And so all humans potentially have a degree of that training under their belt. Because the human kingdom is designed to so in other words, something happens to that person that grew to the top and they lose their business. Maybe they, maybe the next level stimulated it by stimulating a drop in the stock market somehow. I'm not sure exactly. Well, they could do it by a big hurricane can come by and wipe out a certain area of the real estate. And all of a sudden that can affect all kinds of prices for building materials and who knows what else. Whatever, you can just imagine those kind of scenarios that the next level puts the hurricane into motion. They're not directly necessarily taking that person's job away or giving somebody else a job even, because the people that need to fix the damage from the hurricane and the people that move away from that get to have a new experience so that they don't get caught into grooves and they may lose their house that they had. And so maybe they have enough insurance though they get some money back and they can get a fresh start somewhere. But a lot of times they go back to the same area where they made their money and they build again. And then they get wiped out again and they build again if they get a chance. And, hopefully nobody dies in the process. But if they do die, it's only the vehicle that's dying. Not that that's not a serious thing. It's very serious when it's a human causing the death of another vehicle, or the abuse of another vehicle, or the harm of another vehicle physically and mentally in a directly harmful way, not just a harm that like let's say a married couple, one person wants to pay attention to T&O's information and give more time to it. And the other one says, are you kidding? That UFO death cult? You're going to treat that as if there's some value there? You're crazy. And then the person, tries to do it anyway, and they just can't stand to live in that same environment anymore because that person's making it so hard on them to have a positive attitude about what they want to study. And so the person then decides, well, I've got to leave. And so the person that was the husband, let's say in this example, might say, wow, you're going to leave? Leave me with these things that I've got to do in the house that we created together? And what about the debt that we incurred? You're just going to walk out on that? This is hurtful behavior to think you're just going to leave. Now, Tiendo taught that we should get our ducks in a row and, so that we don't leave a mess behind if we are in a circumstance to where we want to leave for some reason that's related to belief and following in Tiendo's footsteps towards overcoming the human characteristics that we have, so that we can apply for membership that is application to membership in the next level, and that will notify next level members on their crews of individuals that are interested in applying for that job on a spacecraft that can be as big as a planet, like Pluto. So then both people get a lesson. Okay, the person that's leaving everything behind or leaving that part of their world behind, and when they do get their ducks in a row. But if you can't get all your ducks in a row, then and that's keeping you from, then there's got to be a point to where, there can be a point to where you just feel like you if you're in that circumstance, you'd be asking the next level. You'd be asking Tiendo in particular, actually, using their names, because their names still mean something, and asking them how to handle this problem. I want to study more. I want to be a student, but I don't know how to have the time for it. So can you help me with it? And the next level, and this might take weeks or months or days or even years for this to take place, but the intention would be to move as quickly as possible with it. And the next level will help the person move so quickly enough to where the difficulties that are going to be stimulated by that with other people are going to be minimal, and they'll be able to surmount them if they ask the next level for help to surmount them. And they don't have to use the next level's words name. They just have to be, distraught and ask for help. And the next level will give them special help. That's what Tiendo taught about that. And so the individuals leaving everything behind would be trusting that Tiendo were the real deal. And so for some people, that might be a very gradual kind of place to arrive at. And it will probably take events in the world to stimulate that at a time when we might end up losing our ability to communicate over the internet. And so that would mean that in order to do the task that is part of applying for membership, we have to work for them. Well, they don't want us to just believe. Belief is nothing without work. And James said that in the book of James in the New Testament, faith without works or belief without works is worthless. Well, I don't know if he said worthless, but it doesn't get you anywhere. And so that's where the job is, the minimum. The overall job is to believe that Tiendo came from the kingdom that created the earth and all its life forms, and then to stand up for that belief in them until we lose our vehicles, and maintain that stand until we lose our vehicles, however that happens. That's the task. We're now I'm not, it might take some time to arrive at a place where in our heads that we actually think in our heads to ourselves, you know what, I think I'm at that place where I want to take that next step. And next level, please help me do that. I wasn't weeping or anything there. I wasn't tearing or anything. I just I've been talking for about 2 hours, even though the live stream only started. Oh no. 54 minutes ago. And so I'm already kind of tired. And so I've got eye strain. But I want to try to get to a little more, though. So let's see how many T's I didn't cross and I's I didn't dot. Well, I don't have a tally of them in my head, but there's probably a lot of loose ends. I know I leave a lot of loose ends all the time, but then your questions can bring them out. But the bottom line is what you're doing in the process of overcoming is getting rid of all the human programming. I just remembered where one of the spots was, and replacing that, not replacing, but filling the soul pocket with the next level's programs. The programs to walk softly, to not gossip, all the things that are in the major and lesser offense lists, and the description of the classroom, and the writings in the Heaven's Gate book that describe what the classroom was all believing. Everything that's outside of that, in behaviors and ways and thinking, is something that's of lesser value. Like what I'm saying is of lesser value to what T and Do are saying. But the lesser value doesn't mean that it's not of any value. It's often that the lesser value things can be helpful to some people, so that they can see some of the higher value things better. Because we never get to a place to where we can see the higher value things completely. Because the next level's higher value things, it's also a moving scale. And it's also dependent upon the individual and what the individual is up against, what they were born into, the vehicle that had these certain characteristics, what they were dealing with. So that's why we can't judge each other of who's growing faster or who's got a soul, who doesn't have a soul, who's closer to the next level older members, who's not, including, this includes me, 100% includes me. I can't judge other people, and nobody can judge me. You can judge behaviors and ways. So if somebody is smacking someone in the face with their hand, literally, that's not good behavior. They don't need to do that. And so we can identify that we don't want to be around people that are doing that kind of behavior. So a lot of people have separated from those detrimental circumstances where people were beating one another and there was so much drug abuse or I want to say drug abuse, but just substance usage that was detrimental to their health and finances and everything and relationships. And so humans are all getting these lessons, but the classroom was about making it an accelerated lesson and taking new steps. And so by controlling those steps, those previous steps, and not letting them influence us anymore, we're building our strength of mind. Because what we are computer systems, like I said before, that are time-shared computer systems. So in other words, there's influences, all the dead humans and the Luciferian space alien souls are all potentially typing into our keyboard of our brain through the words and through the thoughts and ideas, things to put our faith into, things to put our efforts into. And so now the next level is also providing a balance there. Otherwise, we'd all probably be overcome completely. So they provide a balance with those that they see that are coming up. So to keep enough of those influences away from them long enough to where they can get a good grasp on growth and the process. A lot of this was theoretical while I was in the classroom. And to be honest with you, a lot of what I'm saying, I'm putting in different words is a composite of many things that Tiendo said at different times, because they didn't sit us down and talk the way I'm talking that often. They would do that, but I think I'm going into too much detail sometimes. I know that, but it's just the way I am, the way I'm expressing it, the way I know how to do. I know it's not comparable to the way Do gets right to the point. And everybody that wants to study more of Tiendo's materials to understand what they're all about needs to definitely listen to audio tapes from Do and T and Do together, and all the spirits, all the dead humans are trying to timeshare with our computers, with our human vehicles. In other words, they died. When they died, they were a piano player, okay? And so they want to continue to play the piano. The piano playing is now a program that can be turned off and on at will. So they want to go turn it on in a vehicle that can give them the sensation that they get from the vibrations of music. Now, they can't hear anymore, but hearing might extend to being more than strictly the ear's capacity to process sounds and tones. I don't know much about that, but and so the job becomes, let's say it's behavior to let's just use heroin, okay? Which I'm not saying is the worst drug among them, but I'm not saying somebody couldn't use it a time or two and not get addicted by it. But I don't think there's any value to it either. So I think we can see through things that we don't need to try in life. We don't have to try everything over and over again, because we've been growing in the human kingdom for at least the beginning of the civilization. I say we, the we there is the genetic code we, and the environment is the second we, our environment in which we were raised with our parents or caregivers or influence from our friends and everything in life. That becomes the second part of we, the genetic heritage, and then the environment. And then the third we is who we are. That is the only beginning of an individual. And that's the individual that says, no, I'm not going to eat that cookie because I'm trying to stay away from those complex carbohydrates that are mucus forming in my system and the sugar that decays my teeth. Because it's that processed sugar. It doesn't have any enzymes in it anymore. And so it's stripped of its best value. Even though it doesn't mean it's wrong to use those things, it's just a matter of what issue we're willing to tackle at any given time in our health and wellness and mind health and body health. Which we want these vehicles to be healthy as they can be. We want these vehicles to last as long as they can last, so that we can learn lessons through them. Because this is our time for learning lessons, experiential lessons. That's why suicide T and Do were not in favor of suicide, but they said that, and it had two meanings. And they were not in favor of either of the meanings, because the first meaning was not returning to the next level when their older member called them back. Now, and Do said it was time to leave, and he felt like he got that understanding from T, and he had been looking for that understanding for many years, and it finally came down to it. And I was present when he was starting to talk about that. And anyway, so it was hard to stay in the classroom, very difficult, and yet we didn't know it was. I mean, I say we because I assume that some of the other dropouts were as dense as I was, and still am to some degree, in terms of recognizing the influences that we had with us to get rid of. Another influence to get rid of was sexuality, because the mind doesn't need sexuality. Only the vehicle wants to use it, wants to have it, sometimes, most of the time. And so whenever we would have the feeling of wanting that, or the thought of having it, the object would be to put up a blank card, like a cue card in like a theater group. And you can think of it as a game. It's good to think of it as a game. They're not making such a heavy thing, get you evil thing, If that's what you want to overcome, it's evil. If doesn't make if it's a person that you want to overcome having sex with, they're not evil, but the behavior to you becomes evil because it could keep you out of becoming a member of the next level if that's what you want to do. Always have the choice. Every day of every minute of every day, we have the choice to design our own solar system of the content of our brains and our bodies. That's from The Power of Goodness that T wrote, the only document that she wrote to completion. So the object is to empty the balloon that has all the mind in it that came from our human experiences and the genetic code and the environment. and then empty that one, sweep out the house. That's another way. That's the way Jesus put it in one example. And wash the vehicle is another example of it. You're washing the lesser behavior out of your vehicle. It's lesser behavior only in relationship to the next level. In the human kingdom, it's not lesser behavior. There are human kingdom behaviors that I believe are lesser than one another. And when you get towards where you're hurting somebody, it's definitely a lesser behavior than somebody that's, getting angry at their brother or sister for no reason, like Jesus taught. That's not behavior in the next level. We don't really, we shouldn't get angry with anybody. I mean, we can get angry with the behavior, but we shouldn't get angry with any person because we're not their judge on what they're up against. I said before that. But the last part of that was without a reason. So if we have a reason why we're angry with somebody, then we have the right to bring it up to them. And if the person doesn't receive it, then you bring a witness to it. You have two people bring it up to the individual. And the person who doesn't see it still, those two people have to agree, of course. And then go to the congregation, go to the group of people, go to the community, go to the town, go to the city, the state, the country, if that's what it takes, to try to offer correction to that behavior. And So what that does, that process of getting rid of the negatives and putting in the positives. What is putting in the positives? Tiendo said that with strong intent and powerful feeling, this vehicle receives a perfect healing. Or this body receives a perfect healing. I think we had it as body at one point. And so it's, even though the word vehicle was the word that Tiendo gave us to use for it, they actually gave us both to use for it. And by staying with their terminology helps us a lot of times with our mind's thinking, our brain's speed and things. And it's good to be, a little slower in order to check yourself as you're going, to make sure that you're not saying anything that could be construed as being inaccurate, or could be interpreted as being inaccurate, not just construed. Being construed in an inaccurate way and to be interpreted as in an accurate way. All right, so I'll go back to, in terms of a computer analogy in the chat room, are you saying that the memory of the computer moves on? No, not exactly. But there's a memory in the soul that moves on to the next level. But yes, the memory of, the memory, yes. I don't know how to really actually, I don't know, do I? What did Tito say about that? The memories that made a big impression on you, those memories become the program that I believe are automatically stimulated to operate. And in other words, that's what I was talking about before. Like, you started the program of being a piano player. Okay, so now it becomes muscle memory. Muscle memory is operating outside of the technique of, you're not telling your finger anyway, you got to put your fingers on the G key and the C key and the B key to make a chord. You've got some muscle memory now, so that you don't even have to think about it. So that's what I believe might be from Tiendo's mind to describe that better. I don't know that Tiendo would describe it that way because I didn't hear them say that exact example. And but I am trying to listen for what they might give me to say on that. And but I know I can be wrong about that because we can't trust our ideas to be from the next level unless they show evidence of being consistent with many other things. And we're not going to know what those other things are that Tiendo taught unless we study their information. So that's the other task that we have, is to study their information. And then the other part of that task is to disseminate that information. In other words, share it with other people when they're asking for it. Now they can be asking for it in a way that doesn't even bring up the subject. And if that's the case, then we give them pieces of the puzzle that does relate to what they're asking about. So let's say the subject of UFOs comes up in a conversation at a bar or something. And or even somebody says, starts the conversation with you and says, well, what's on your mind? I did that to somebody the other day in a bar, actually, where I was playing music. And at first, the person didn't know what I was asking for. And I guess it was kind of unusual for me to say that. I actually said to them, I don't mean to pry, and but I'm just, I didn't say any more than that, but since I'm not from around here, what are the kind of things around here do you like to do and think about, and I forgot what the answer was because I'm not tuned into that right now, and I don't want to get onto that. But why did I go all the way down that road? Let me see if I can get back to where I started down that thread. I don't think they're not of value to go down in these little threads. I think they can be to some people, and I'm treating it as a positive, even though it's a negative that I lose track of where I'm at. But Doe had helpers in the Beyond Human series to remind him of things, so I don't feel like it's a sin. There's a difference between not doing the job as well as we'd like to, and that's a good characteristic to have, because next level members are like that about everything. They want to do the best job they can do, whatever they put their mind to, but within reason. They can get anal about. Next level members don't get anal about it, and that word anal was never used in the classroom. I learned it when I left the classroom, and I became a partner with somebody, like a marriage actually. We lived together, and we had a child together and raised that child together. Anyway, but she used that word anal, and so I started to use it. I don't know if it's related to the body part. I guess it is, huh? Like maybe that's related to being like a pain in the ass. We didn't use the word ass in the classroom. It would have been the seat of the vehicle, because Quinto called the underwear seat covers. Because see, our mind, our thoughts, that's what they say, the Lord is the word, it comes with the word, because the words are actually the frequency arrangement of the thought that triggers the memories and the programming that we had in different ways, so that we can be, think of the word underwear, and all of a sudden now we're going to get a view of, how that person looks in underwear, can stimulate someone's sexuality. And you don't want to stimulate your sexuality if you're trying to overcome it. We don't need to test ourselves. We shouldn't test ourselves. And we don't also ask the influences to lay it on. We can ask the next level for accelerated growth if we feel bored with what we're learning. And the next level will give us accelerated growth. But we don't ask the influences. We don't challenge the influences. That's the better way to say that. We don't say, I can take whatever you can dish out, you lower forces of this world that are trying to keep me human. You don't need to brag about stuff. Just do it. If you can do it, then just do it. Just put up the blank card, the blank cue card that has nothing on it. So it wipes your mind clean of the thoughts. And then you can maintain that. You can hold on to that. And you can actually go about your day holding on to blocking thoughts. But it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. I only got a little bit. I only tasted of being able to do that. And now I can't do it. I mean, I shouldn't say can't. I can do it a tiny bit just to know that I can do it, but for a short period of time. And it depends on the thought. Sometimes it's hard for me to get rid of a certain thought. And even by saying that, I identified with a thought that was hard to get rid of. And I watched it flip into my head for a second there. I didn't get the full image of it because I want to block that thought. And so I'm blocking it right now because I'm talking about that thought. I'm having to block it at the same time from getting the full image of it. What a beautiful design. I'll go back to the chat room for a second here. Yes, we need to experience the human kingdom in order to exit the human kingdom. Well, let me think. Oh no, I mean we exit the human kingdom when we lose our vehicles. Now the next level can choose to save the spirits or the souls, or the souls. You don't have both, because if you had a soul put in your vehicle, then the programming in that vehicle is choosing to by waking that soul up when the older member's information comes to us, and we start to we recognize it as information that's very interesting to us and even makes sense, and so we want more of it. That's waking up the soul of your vehicle, so that it can continue to be filled with that next level Holy Spirit information, the next level mind, that goes to the Chief of Chiefs and through all the older members and to the younger members, to the student members. To the human kingdom through all the channels. So then the next level can choose to bring back those spirits and bring back the soul in order to have another experience in the human kingdom. And the way the spirits come back, because the spirits are all in these 12 grades in school. Okay, so, and they can be all over the planet. You don't know who's in what grades, because everybody can be getting lessons that bring them to the top of the mountain of the human kingdom. But the only way to get off that mountain, to go to outer space, where the next level have their mountains, their spacecrafts, their environments, their jobs, their tasks, their off time, their fun, their joy, their challenges, their growth opportunities, where they have that. Well, that's just going to put a period there, but that ends up. Well, what I was saying before, though, is that it creates body changes, so that the vehicle is actually changing, but the soul actually is a body also, because what happens is the next level, by going this over and over again, going over our lessons. In other words, keeping those thoughts out day and night. I'm not gonna I'm not going to go down the street to that bar when I have a problem with alcohol. I'm not going to walk past that bar even. I'm not even going to think about going out in that direction if I've got a problem with alcohol. That would be strengthening your mind. And Keith referred to it as a muscle, a mind muscle. Now, the soul is a plasma physicality. It's not etheric. A spirit is etheric. It's a frequency-based object. Like software that only operates through hardware. And the human vehicle is the hardware. And so the brain is the database, but all the actual cells and the genetic code of all those cells is that database. That's where all the memories are stored. But like I said before, they're also stored. They're stored, but they're not. They don't go away because the frequency of them is a frequency that has a relationship with the electromagnetic frequency of that part of the planet where humans thrive. I don't know how far that goes out into, might go beyond the moon. Some people say that, or I've seen scientists say that the electromagnetic field of the Earth goes beyond the moon. But it might be of a certain frequency that the spirits cannot exist within. And so I don't know if it's possible that they could end up evaporating into that, but I think the way that I think it works is the next level. That's what the judgment is. The final judgment is when this one goes here and this one goes there, like you said before in the chat room about that the chaff is left behind. The vehicles are left behind. In the analogy of the wheat, the stalk is the human vehicle. And the mind of that human vehicle is the head of that human vehicle. Even though the head might be, never mind that, forget it. And then the fruit from the head is the seeds from the kernels, the little wheat kernels that come from the head. And that becomes fruit to the next level because it becomes the functional servant. But servant isn't a negative thing. Service to the next level is beautiful. It's beautiful. I mean, there's nothing more beautiful than that in terms of service. I know, people think, oh, well, if you're a servant, then you're a lesser person. No. You're not a lesser person. If you've been hired to be a servant and that's the only way you can make your money, you're not a lesser person for that. I'm not saying even if maybe you want to do that because you don't want to play the games that you got to play to these other jobs. Doe talked about getting a job at one point, and he talked about it as being a janitor. A janitor can be closer to the next level than a rocket scientist. In fact, the rocket scientist may be miles apart from the janitor because the rocket scientist is going to be preoccupied with all that. So when are they going to take the time to say, hey, next level, can you help me with my growth? Well, they're going to get their opportunities too. So we can't judge them as being lesser than us if we happen to be somebody that's trying to grow to the next level, because we never know when somebody else is going to start to grow closer to the next level. To lose their house in a flood, that's a big stimulus to think, maybe I shouldn't live in this place anymore. You know, I got to start over. And then the next level gets a chance to help them in a way, or let's say they, you can imagine all kinds of scenarios. When we lose things in the human kingdom, that's potentially coming from the next level, either by some kind of semi-automatic structure that I don't know how to describe, because Quinto didn't get into that kind of detail. It's not necessary for us to get into that kind of detail, but it's fun. I admit that, and to try to. But we have to know what's fun and what's necessary. And so whether it's by that, or whether it's by having to get into doing something and changing our behaviors in ways. I lost what it was. I'm sorry. I'm not going to make up something. Let me see if I can get it back. Right, I was just talking about how you get out of things, and I was giving examples of, the hurricane wiping the person out and all that, and now we can't judge one another because we don't know when that person's going to change and the light's going to go off, and we don't know what they accomplished in their other behaviors and ways in life. They might have been really good at. They may have become totally gender consciouslessness. In other words, so they didn't see people as a gender. Now, Quinto said that that people that are homosexual are evidencing being gender consciousless. Now, they didn't say that word, consciousless. I don't know, maybe that's a word. It doesn't sound like a word, actually. but genderless was the word that Quinto used. That was one of the characteristics of a member of the next level. They're genderless because their vehicles don't have any gender. They don't have any plumbing that identifies gender. They don't have the sexual organs. They don't need to use those are mammal organs. They're not mammals. So, all right, I got back around to that. I don't feel so bad about myself now, but I can't get all disturbed about my awkwardness and my weaknesses in different areas because in talking and all that. Because, there's always somebody that wants to beat you down, and so don't let the influences do it to ourselves either. When you get a lesson and it's a lesson, then take it seriously, yes, and try to make changes, yes. And if you fall again, then get back up. Doesn't matter how many times it happens. It's getting back up. That's important. Because if they think that you're defeated completely, then you might be defeated completely. But the next level can help you too get back up. And they'll do that. They'll bail you out of certain circumstances. Miracles can happen. Next level can save you from a deadly accident if they think that your vehicle still can serve you to grow. because they don't operate on our time. Like it's 1,000 years in the human kingdom is a day in the next level. They can operate at the speed of light. So if they're watching somebody and that person is veering off the road because they're falling asleep, they can do something to keep them on the road even, and also help wake them up and have them stop and get a cup of coffee before they continue to drive. So next level can do that. So all the natural disasters, the people that are asking for help from the next level can get help from the next level. Doesn't mean they're going to, because if they do lose their vehicle, whether they asked or not for the help, the next level can take that spirit and when it dies, the spirit's going to just hang around doing the same thing that it did. And so that spirit could actually help other people in that circumstance, or maybe they just become part of a group mind, so to speak. It depends on what that spirit had grown to become, which happened through the life of the last vehicle. Oh, no more water. So then Jeremiah says, did Quinto have a particular prescription for mitigating lust? Yes, put up the blank card in the thoughts so that you didn't have them in your thoughts at all. When you dress, cover up your flesh so that when you look in the mirror, you're not going to see a hairy chest if you're attracted to hairy chests, or you're not going to see a whatever, that sensitive area of the neck of a woman, that a man might be attracted to, for the women, wear a bra so that if you're around a man that wants to maintain that behavior, they don't see the shape of the bosom underneath the bra, and stuff like that. I'm not saying it's wrong for a woman to go about society wearing without a bra. I'm just saying that if you want to overcome those conditions, for the woman that's wearing the bra, they don't want the attention of men to be on their breasts. And so if they want to overcome their sexuality, then they might want to wear the clothing that's not going to draw to them the influences and the thoughts and the feelings that are going to be projected on them by individuals seeing those things that are attractive to them and their sexuality. That's the value of the barca, and which Quinto did comment on that and said that the individuals in the Middle East that were wearing those coverings were in a good place because they were putting more attention to what the next level had taught to curb their sexual passions and to keep them for use in towards next level, growing towards next level behaviors of helping people, like do to others as you'd have them do to you, and loaning to people that need something. If you have two coats, give the person one of them that doesn't have one when they ask for it, and all the behaviors that Jesus was teaching. And all the behaviors that don't kill people, don't go to war, and if you do go to war, be a medic. That would be. But even so, I'm not saying that the people that go to war are doing something wrong. No, it becomes a harder lesson though. And that's why you have so many, like 20-something veterans kill themselves every day. Every day. It's been going on that for a long time. I heard that figure repeated by the Red Cross and by veterans groups within the last year. I've been hearing it for many years. At least since the Iraq War, I remember hearing that number, how many people kill themselves. Now, some of them may be considered to kill themselves because they've got on so many Oxycontin or whatever it is they're trying to do to numb the pain of their memories. Because that memories can be very painful. Everybody should be able to identify with that. There's something that's happened to us that wasn't something that we liked. And so to think about it can kind of restore that pain again. So the object would be to block that out when that pain comes back. Whatever that is. Could be anger. Another form of sensuality is anger. Seeking of power is a big form of sensuality. Ego. It's a huge. Being deceitful is a very big thing to overcome. It's very easy to justify being deceitful. And giving into all those behaviors will keep you off the spacecraft. I mean, I'm not saying that, the degree of it that we overcome is what the next level judges. Because they know, depending on the grade in school we're in, we're not going to necessarily have the experience to overcome everything. Unless we've gotten to the 12th grade. And so the vehicles that have gotten to the 12th grade are then a match for the souls that had also grown to control their vehicles to the degree that they were ready to graduate. And that's when it's time to cut off. That's when people start getting they start breaking away from their family units. And I'm not proposing to do that as just for the heck of it. I mean, but see, I don't have to tell people to do that or not do that. I'm not telling people to do that or not to do that. What I'm saying is that it's going to come from us how much we want to grow to be closer to Tiendo. And our circumstances will change so that breaking those ties becomes relative to our own content of our mind, our own force that we've kept in relationship to being a student of Tiendo's behaviors and ways and providing of service to them. We're providing service to Tiendo by actually controlling our vehicle. That's one of the jobs that we had, was take over a horse, take over a human vehicle, make it obedient to me, the driver, the person that's going to say, no, you can't have that and you can't have that. That you can do. That I don't want you to do. You want to go have some fun? Okay, go to the zoo. Go to the strip joint? No, that's not a good idea. Vehicle, maybe you want to go to the strip joint, but go to the zoo. There's nothing wrong with pleasure. Tiendo said that they wanted to be the ones to give it. They had to be the ones to design our pleasure because we were in a condensed unit that was a classroom for that specific purpose of abiding by what they gave us. If they told us that to make to use red crayons whenever we wrote on a certain board that was announcing the menu, the experiment for the day, then we were using their mind by using the red crayon. If somebody then decided to pick up the blue crayon for that purpose and do it, they would be rebelling from the next level, and the next level would know about it. One way or another, they would find out about it, and the next level would have a way of saying, well, is that what you want to do? If you don't want to do this, then you don't want to be in this classroom. If you don't want to be in this classroom, let me help you go to what you want to do outside the classroom. If you want to be in this classroom, then you're going to have to figure out how to identify that thought that wants to be rebellious and cut it off and not let your body do it. Not let your mind think that. So that's where the classroom was very difficult, because we had all these procedures, and the people that were rebellious, when that was one of their characteristics, which that didn't happen to be, at least in this life, doesn't seem to be a characteristic that I have. Well, I do have it in a certain form, but in other forms I don't have it. So, but maybe actually that was part of what I was dealing with in allowing myself to break procedures having to do with sexuality. I wasn't doing as good of a job as I could have with my disciplines, which I only realized years after I left the group. Which is not saying that I wasn't doing the best I could. I don't think it was. I'm pretty sure actually it wasn't. And I think that's the right attitude to have anyway, because we don't want to be too pleased with ourselves. So we should expect the most from ourselves. And part of that is recovering when we make a mistake. A mistake is only what we consider to be a mistake. And the way to recover from mistakes, if that mistake affected somebody else, is to go apologize to them. And but we don't apologize to them by telling them that they stimulated it. Even though they might have stimulated it. That wouldn't have been the way a member of the next level would do it, which we were taught in our slippage meetings. We had meetings where we would talk about the things that we didn't do as well. Okay, like I got in a hurry and I tried to run. Oh no, here's a good one. I was going to a job interview, and I was driving, and I was going to be late for the job interview, so I broke procedure by driving more than 2 or 3 miles over the speed limit. The procedure was, it was okay to drive 2 or 3 miles over the speed limit. And so if you drove over that, if you were the pilot and the co-pilot in that craft, in a sense, we thought of it that way. It's kind of fun to think of it that way. And was responsible to say, you're going over the speed limit, because they were the navigator and also the monitoring. They were a task partner at that point. And so they would bring it up, and then the person would correct it right away. And then it wouldn't necessarily be a slippage if they corrected it right away. I mean, they could still bring it up in a slippage meeting, and say, I went over the speed limit. And we had cruise control, so we could set that, to help us not do that. And you can get good at it so that, it pretty much got control of your foot, especially on the land when the land is very level. The time when I'm thinking about that time when we had when I was speeding one time. I was taking it from my own slippages. It was in California on the 405, I think it was. But I know Songbody was my partner. I know she was uncomfortable with. I feel like she was uncomfortable with my speeding. But she then became very flexible, and she knew that my intention was to not cause a mistake. I mean, to get to the job interview, it was important for us to get tasks. That was we were sent out to get our jobs so that we could support the group, the classroom, the effort, the classroom. Yeah, I said that twice, but and so in a sense, maybe it wasn't wrong for me to do that. Tiendo would have understood it in that circumstance. But my perspective would have been then to check with Tiendo and say, in that circumstance, was it wrong? And I could write a note to them to ask that. And I don't think I did that. I think I just swept it under the rug. I don't think I brought it up at a slippage meeting. We weren't even having that many slippage meetings at that time. And Doe was a little bit upset about that at one point, that we weren't having them as frequently as he thought we needed to have them. Because we had a lot of rules, but then a lot of the rules were relaxed after a time of following them, and then they didn't become rules anymore. Because we had developed the muscle memory, I guess, enough. They never called it muscle memory. But Tia did say that the mind we were developing our mind muscle. It was a muscle of the mind. I hadn't thought of it that way before, but it makes sense, doesn't it? Because the memory would be the procedure. You should not kill. So no matter how much that person wants to kill you, you got to find a way to stop them without killing them back. I mean, the object is to not be in a circumstance where you could be faced with having to kill somebody to stay alive. I know a lot of soldiers, when they were told to shoot, they would shoot over the heads of the people they were told to shoot. Or they would shoot down to the ground, lower, or to the side, so that they didn't have to kill anybody. I know some people in Iraq just testified to that. I think there was a bunch of people that shot up a bunch of civilians. They were being prosecuted and nothing happened to them, actually. But they're going to have to live with those spirits because karma isn't, it's a scientific function. Imagine if you wanted to kill somebody and they wanted to kill you, and then you got them first. What's going to stop them from wanting to continue to kill you? Because that was what they were in motion to do. So then they might follow you around for the rest of your life, wanting to kill you, and to where you think you want to kill yourself because you can't stand, you can't differentiate. All you can hear is, kill the vehicle, kill the vehicle. Like Jesus said, those that live by the sword die by the sword. Because we're stimulating those spirits to influence us into that behavior. And so we'll continue, even though we might not, if somebody is a soldier and they kill somebody on the battlefield, they might not get killed right away. It's might not going to be instant karma. It doesn't matter, though. And they might not even die. And the vehicle might not even die from somebody else killing them. but they will die with that on their record if they didn't ask for forgiveness and seek to do things to try to change that behavior, like quit the military. Tell somebody that you can't be on the front lines, you're too scared. They'll put you in a desk job. They don't want people scared there. If you're somebody that's in the military listening to this right now. Be called a coward. Let yourself be called a coward. That what happens is they get such in a program that they think what they're doing is saving their comrades from death and harm. And so that's how they think they justify keep on going back out to the battlefield. Because they're so bonded with one another in that very, very harsh environment, being trained to, see destruction around you, see civilians dying, houses being inflamed and blown up, and holy smokes, that's like, to do that to people and survive it, you've got to have nothing. You've got to have no programming left from the next level to be willing to go back and do that again. So the people that have the PTSD, they're the good ones. The more good ones, because nobody's good except the Lord. Our older members are good. We're all degrees of good, potentially. I'll go back to the chat room. Hi, Kathy Southwestern. And then Kathy says, thank you so much for continuing to do these live streams. I may not be able to tune in live, but I'm catching up on all of them, and I appreciate you doing them very much. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that. Yeah, they're some of the influences that I have don't want me to do them. They don't want me to do them. They'd rather have me sit around and watch a Netflix video, which I'm kind of bored with now. Jeff says, greetings, Sawyer. Greetings back. Hello, DJ Taconic. Wow. Yeah, I've been, coming up in a couple hours. My last broadcasts aren't saving. And but maybe it was because of that. Well, it's still saying I have a video problem, but at least it's continuing to go. I'm pretty tired, and I got to get up kind of early tomorrow. So if you just joined me, I'll definitely do another one, as long as I'm capable, as long as the next level helps me stay capable. So since some of you probably joined early on, before I close it off, I'm going to just go back to the Revelation 9:1 that's on the screen there, and just repeat that. That was a next level crew sending communication to the planet. And Quinto talked about that as a light from the distant heavens shining on the planet. They never talked about this verse that I ever saw. And then this is depicting the star falling from the heavens, the next level spacecrafts with the next level returning souls and their vehicles on those spacecrafts in order to go through the remainder of their overcoming lessons to be born into adult next level membership. And it says that they're coming from heaven, so that's the indication of that. And stars are depicted as being next level members. Now, star in that capacity can be the ones that gave their lives when they were with Jesus, for instance. When they started talking about Jesus after they knew it was unpopular, and that they were going to be hated the same way that he was hated if they kept on doing it. And so instead of the ones that some of them probably just went back into the human world and tried to keep low key about it all, but other ones went out and started meetings, and talked to people on the street, whatever it took. There's no limit to what we can do to talk to people, but there are ramifications on some places that are probably better to do it than other places, because we don't want to stimulate the negative before it's time. Let it, so if you got nothing to lose by talking about it on the street, then do it. But if you're relying on your income in order to have a place to eat and food, in the store that you work in, then I wouldn't choose talking about the next level in front of that store, because there's going to be influences that are going to be wanting to. What the heck was that? Are going to try to come against you. That are going to be able, they're going to hear. I don't know if the influences hear through other humans, or if they can actually hear because our thoughts are the same kind of frequency set up when it's encoded into spirit. I don't know how they can, but I do know that Quinto felt like saying something out loud had was, I'm not real clear on this one. I think it's just better to not. Well, let's say you were planning to. Well, I don't know if this is a good example or not, but let's say you were planning to go talk to somebody about Quinto. Let's say a handful of people at a library. Maybe you put up a poster somewhere that said that you were going to talk about UFOs and angels and Jesus and whatever. I'm just giving some examples of some ideas people might have. And so let's say you I don't know. Maybe I'm off track trying to come up with an example of something not to say because influences could pick it up and take it to somebody and cause them, set the stage so that some people would be hit with a negative. I think there's a value to what I'm talking about. One way or another, I think the space aliens can probably pick up on your thoughts. I know they can. I don't know if they can pick up on the thoughts, but they definitely, can they? I don't know if they can read the words on the screens or in books, unless they have a vehicle to read through. I don't know. Quinto weren't real. Maybe I just didn't pick up on what they were saying if they did talk about it. So I'm going to drop all that. But let me just put it this way. There's a value to not saying things sometimes. And restraint is good to have. Here's a good example. When we were told to go on the road and to test the churches to see if they would give us help with the areas that we asked for help in, food, lodging, gasoline, the kind of things that we asked for while we were doing the work for our Heavenly Father. We would use the Heavenly Father terminology because, if you said, we're here working for the evolutionary level above human, we could have said that though, but I didn't, because I was afraid. I would say we're on a task for our Heavenly Father bringing new information, is the way I would say it, about the kingdom of God. And so that was like opening the door so they could ask, what is the new information? Yeah, Jesus said, don't cast your pearls before swine, right? I mean, not that we're looking at anybody as swine, but we're looking at other humans as potential swine in certain circumstances where we don't know them. But doesn't mean we're judging them in any way. Because the swine aren't the humans. The swine are the influences, the discarnates and the space aliens that are trying to use those humans and have brainwashed a lot of those humans. So we're not judging the human themselves. Because again, we don't know when they could wake up and from what, and what degree they can wake up and what lessons they've already accomplished, even though they may appear to be doing something that's elementary towards next level growth. All right, I get that kind of got to where I wanted to go on that. Kathy Southwestern says, "Have a great restful night, Sawyer." Thank you. I hope so. And same for all of you. If maybe today is the beginning of your day now, but whatever you're about to do, like Junie said, may the force be with you. Or one of the students said that. May the force be with you. They liked the Star Trek and the Star Wars, the early Star Wars series, with Yoda being the older member and using their minds to do battle with their saber swords. Battle of light, dark and the white, but white is pure and dirty, not like nothing to do with skin pigmentation. That was the lower forces putting that spin on it so that they could get humans to judge other humans as being less of value. Because especially you want to do that to Christians, because then they could entrap those Christians into behavior that wasn't like the next level. And so then they would be showing that behavior and they would look like hypocrites to people because they were saying they were Christians, yet they were being in the Ku Klux Klan. And so that stimulated the growth of atheism. Not that that wasn't, and atheism is a good step because it's away from that negative programming that wasn't honest. It wasn't talking about the formula of the next level through all the teachings of Jesus. That started with Jesus. The Moses trimester was preparation for that. For the Jesus part of the experiment, of preparation for the graduation. That's why his disciples left everything behind. Though it didn't mean that they didn't see their loved ones. But they were shifting their loyalty away from the human kingdom. And that's what it's meant by being marked by the beast, is giving our loyalty, our allegiance to the governmental systems and all their methods of solving problems. If you get cancer, chemotherapy, radiation therapy, that's the first place to go. Not that that's not a good thing. That can be a good thing, okay? And some people can survive it well. But there's other ways of dealing with it. Of course, if you get to a place to where it's a certain stage, well, you don't know that the next level can still deal with it. If they want you to keep in that vehicle, and there'll be a miracle that'll happen. And people will say, wow, I guess it was a miracle. Or, but the scientists will think, well, the miracle was that amino acid went over there, blah, blah, blah. And they might be right. But they don't know that the next level stimulated that to happen. Because Tiendo said that the next level were close to people in hospitals. And when people were dying, they were close to the hospitals in order to take individuals to where their next lesson plan was, next grade in school. They probably have a storage area for the grades in school. They're not suffering in that storage area. They may be able to do some tasks for the next level. Depends on what they grew to do. All right. Thanks so much, you all, for participating with me on this. And look forward to doing it again soon. Good night. We'll go through the next couple verses and every time on this because it stimulates so many things, I know the influences don't want me to talk about scripture. They hate it. Good night for the third time.